Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how I film wedding ceremonies. In the video we're going to go over audio, camera settings, camera positions, what not to do, and working together as a vendor team. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later in the video. But first, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Now before we get started, I just want to clarify, this is just for a classic traditional wedding ceremony style. And what I mean by classic and traditional is it is not a Jewish ceremony or Hindu or even a Catholic tradition. This is just a simple run through, pre-sessional, vows, a little bit of speaking from the officiant, and kiss and processional. So first things first, audio. Now I actually use two external audio recorders. Now the first one that I use, this little guy, this actually just goes into the soundboard or the sound system at the ceremony. And then this one actually goes into the groom's jacket pocket inside with a lapel mic. And this is the lapel mic that I use that goes in here. You will need to use the adapter that goes into this. So the microphone will just clip onto his jacket, and then this will go inside his pocket on the inside. And you tuck the wire around so it's not completely hanging out during the whole ceremony. And I have 3 onboard microphones that I use for all 3 of the cameras that I have running for the ceremony. It is always important to do an audio check on all the devices. All 5 of these, I go through and check the audio. When I have this one plugged into the sound system, I have them play some music or test the microphone or something just to make sure that it's picking up audio and check the levels, make sure it's good. So when I check sound levels with this, I try to keep it around 12 to 15 decibels just because it could fluctuate a little bit between the music and the officiant speaking or the bride and groom if they're going to use their microphone. Alright, and let's talk about camera positions. So during the pre-sessional, camera 1 is up front with me, facing down the aisle, and it pans with the bridal party coming down the aisle or the parents, and it stays on them. And then camera 2 is in the back with the telephoto lens, and it stays back there, and it's always focused on the altar. And camera 3 is actually right behind me, and it's facing the groom, just so I am always getting the groom's reaction to everything. And I have a little bit wider, so if the groomsman comes up and gives them a hug or a handshake or a fist bump, whatever, it's there on camera. So after the pre-sessional, I take my third camera off to the side and not in front of people. And I have it more focused on just the groom, mostly. And then again, my second camera stays in the back. I go back to it, check on it, and I make the shot a little bit tighter of just the bride and groom. And then whenever they're doing their vows, I take my first camera that I always carry with me just to get different shots and different angles, different perspectives during the ceremony, just to make it more interesting to watch rather than static cameras in one position the whole time, switching around from all 3 cameras. It'll get a little bit boring, especially if it's an hour-long ceremony. So while camera 3 is focused on the groom, I can have camera 1 focus on the bride while they are doing their vows, so I can switch back and forth between them two, getting their reactions while they are reading each other's vows to each other. So here's just a few things that I do for my shot list during the ceremony. It's pretty straightforward. During the pre-sessional, I make sure I get the bride walking down the aisle and the groom's reaction to the bride walking down the aisle. The way I have it set up is that camera 3 will be focused on the groom. The camera 3 is always getting that, with camera 1 will be pointing down the aisle, watching the bride come down the aisle. For safety measures, I do like to, get the bride coming down the aisle for a good most of the way, and then switch back around to the groom just for a few seconds, and then switch back around to the bride coming down the aisle. Now, if it's a short aisle, then I won't do it, or if they're walking fast, I won't do it then either, because again, with weddings, I believe in backups upon backups. I actually just had a lapel mic that went out on me 3 weeks ago, and I had a backup. And I like to go around and try to get some reactions of parents or grandparents, whoever's wiping their nose or tearing up during vows or reading or during the ceremony in general. Just whip around, get a few seconds of that, and then go back to the bride and groom. And then, of course, the kiss and the processional of bride and groom walking down the aisle. And sometimes I have them stop in the middle of the aisle and kind of just do a dip and kiss, or just do another kiss. Works just fine. So in the past, I've had people ask me about my camera settings. This pretty much just goes across the board with all my cameras, except for my Canon, which is my third camera that I use. And we can get into that later. But the Sony cameras that I mainly use for everything, it kind of varies where I'm at and what the setting is. Overall, I like to stick with a no picture profile, just because with the color science, it's closer to, just because it's closer to what I like of how I want the picture to look when I'm in post editing. And I have some of my own custom LUTs that I like to use. And very rarely I use S-Log footage, to be honest, just because you have to have good lighting to use S-Log. And even if you're outside, yeah, it'll work great outside. But if there's a lot of green and stuff, which usually there is, then that green kind of reflects off of the skin tones, and it just makes it really hard to work with and get that out. And I mainly use 60 frames per second as much as possible throughout the day, just to be able to slow everything down a little bit. One thing that I like to do with the two other cameras that I'm not really standing behind the whole time, I like to have a higher f-stop just to make it easier for the focus to work. Because with my second camera, I use a Canon telephoto lens on a Sony body. If you ever try to use a Canon lens on a Sony body, it doesn't work very well. The autofocus is super slow, and you can't even use it. If using a telephoto lens, it's constantly adjusting, and it's just really annoying. And the Canon that I have, it's not an actual autofocus live, it's not continually autofocusing while it's recording. You have to press and hold a button, and then it will autofocus for you. But it's always real quick. It's a press, hold, done. Now, the most important thing of all, working together as a vendor team. What that means is that everybody there that is part of making the wedding day happen, they're a vendor. Even the person that's making the cake is a vendor. The florist is a vendor. The photographer is a vendor. The DJ or sound guy are a vendor as well. Even the venue is a vendor. So you, as a videographer, are a vendor. You have your own shot list. So does the photographer, has their own shot list as well. The DJ needs to cue the right music, make sure he's not playing the processional music during the time when the bride is walking down the aisle. The planners or the coordinators need to make the bride and groom enjoy themselves as much as possible and enjoy the day stress-free. That even includes having everything run on time, run smoothly, and any issues that comes up, they take care of it. So one of the big things is communicating with the vendors. It's just as simple as introducing yourself to everyone. And with the photographer, after introducing yourself, just by breaking the ice, be like, oh, by the way, if I'm ever in any of your shots, please let me know. And then just like that, 99% of the time, the photographer is going to say the same thing. And then before the pre-sessional, meet up with the photographer and, ask them, hey, where are you going to be at during the pre-sessional? Or ask them, where are you going to be at when the bridal party is coming down the aisle? So whatever they do, just make it work. Try to work around them. So the way I see it is with all the vendors working together on that day is a team. They all have their own roles, their own things that they need to do. Each and every person needs to succeed and do good and strive for perfection, because the day for the bride and groom needs to be perfect. And then when that happens, that every vendor strives for success, and when everyone takes part of their role and nails it, then the wedding day is a success. And so every vendor is equally important to each other, because everyone works together to make the day happen as best as possible. All right, and that's it for me. That's how I film wedding ceremonies. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys at the next video.